You made a mess. Now you'll lick up every last drop, she said, her voice dripping with venom as she pointed to the dark puddle of coffee on the floor. 3 identical 4-year-old girls crouched on the ground, crying silently. One of them leaned closer to the spilled coffee. Just behind them, a billionaire man snapped his laptop shut, his eyes locked on the scene with dangerous intensity. What the cruel cafe manager didn't know was that her new supreme boss was about to act, and that this act of vile humiliation would reveal who his daughters truly were, cost her the business, and bring a father closer to the children he never knew he had. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Look what you've done! Karen Mitchell's voice sliced through the quiet afternoon atmosphere of the Grand Plaza Hotel Cafe. Do you know how expensive it is to maintain these floors? The cafe fell silent. Every customer turned to watch as the manager in her crisp red blazer towered over 6-year-old Zoe Johnson. The small girl trembled, staring at the dark puddle of coffee spreading across the pristine white marble floor. You made this mess, Karen continued, leaning down until her face was inches from the child's. Now you'll lick up every last drop. Tears welled in Zoe's eyes. Her identical sisters, Zara and Zoe, stood frozen beside her, their matching blue Westfield Academy uniforms with gold emblems suddenly seeming small and vulnerable under the harsh cafe lights. Earlier that afternoon, Marcus Johnson had pulled up to Westfield Academy in his black town car. The chauffeur, Thomas, opened the door as 3 identical little girls with curly brown hair raced toward the vehicle. "Daddy!" They squealed in unison as Marcus looked up from his phone. "Hello, my little ones," said Marcus, making room as they piled into the back seat beside him. "How was school today?" "I got a gold star in math," announced Zara proudly. "I helped Sarah when she fell on the playground," Zoe added. "I drew a picture of us in the garden," Zoe said quietly, pulling a colorful drawing from her backpack. Marcus glanced at the drawing and nodded. "That's very nice. Listen, girls, we need to stop at the Grand Plaza before going home. I have to finish something important." "Can we have cake at the cafe?" asked Zara. Marcus checked his watch. 4:15. "Yes, but only if you behave. I need to concentrate for 30 minutes. Then we can go home." When they arrived at the Grand Plaza Hotel, Marcus led his daughters through the gleaming lobby. Hotel staff nodded respectfully as the owner passed. Marcus had purchased the prestigious Manhattan Hotel 6 months ago, adding it to his growing collection of luxury properties. The cafe occupied the southwest corner of the first floor, with tall windows overlooking Fifth Avenue. Marcus chose a corner table with a good view of the counter where his daughters would order. "You can each pick one treat," he told them, opening his laptop. "I'll watch from here." As the girls skipped toward the marble counter, Marcus answered an incoming call. "Johnson here," he said, immediately diving into discussion about the acquisition numbers he needed to finalize before tomorrow. At the counter, the triplets pressed their noses against the glass display case, admiring the colorful array of pastries and cakes. "I want the strawberry tart," said Zara. "I want chocolate cake," said Zoe. "I want the lemon cookie," said Zoe, pointing. Karen Mitchell, the cafe manager, was instructing a new employee at the coffee machine when she noticed the 3 identical girls at the counter. Her morning had been difficult. The health inspector had made a surprise visit, and 2 employees had called in sick. Then she'd received a phone call with news she wasn't prepared to handle. "3 children at the counter, April," she said to the young server. "Handle it while I finish training Roberto." April smiled at the triplets. "What can I get for you today?" The girls placed their orders, standing on tiptoes to see over the tall counter. As April prepared their treats, Zoe noticed they would need napkins. She stretched her small arm across the counter, fingers grasping for the napkin holder. "Be careful," Zara warned. But Zoe's sleeve caught the edge of a freshly poured cup of coffee waiting for another customer. The cup tipped, sending dark liquid cascading over the counter and onto the floor. "Oh no!" Zoe gasped, jumping back. Karen turned at the sound of the cup hitting the floor. The coffee spread in a dark pool across the white marble. Her face tightened as she marched toward the spill, her pearl necklace bouncing against her red blazer. "Look what you've done!" she snapped, glaring at Zoe. "Do you know how expensive it is to maintain these floors?" Customers turned to watch. The cafe grew silent except for the soft background music. "You made this mess," Karen continued, pointing at the puddle and leaning down until her face was inches from Zoe's. "Now you'll lick up every last drop." The cruel command hung in the air. Zoe's face crumpled in humiliation and fear. "She didn't mean to," whispered Zoe, moving closer to her sister. "It was an accident," added Zara, her voice shaking. But Karen kept glaring at Zoe, waiting for the child to obey. To the horror of onlookers, Zoe began to lean toward the puddle, trembling visibly. Her sisters grabbed her school blazer, trying to hold her back. "Stop it," Zoe whispered through tears. "I have to do what the lady says." From across the room, Marcus finally registered the commotion. He ended his call mid-sentence, his eyes narrowing as he took in the scene, his daughter bending toward the floor, the cafe manager standing over her, the shocked faces of the other patrons. He closed his laptop with a decisive snap. Something shifted inside him as he stood to his full height of 6 feet 2 inches. The cafe grew even quieter as he strode across the room, his expensive Italian shoes clicking against the marble floor. "What's happening here?" he asked, his deep voice cutting through the silence. Karen turned, irritation flashing across her features. "Sir, I'm handling a situation with my daughters," Marcus finished for her, placing a protective hand on Zoe's shoulder. "And you are?" "Karen Mitchell, cafe manager," she replied, her tone professional but clipped. "This child spilled coffee on our imported marble floor. I was explaining the seriousness of by telling a 6-year-old child to lick liquid from the floor?" Marcus asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Karen blinked, suddenly noticing the expensive cut of his suit and his commanding presence. "The child needs to learn. These children," Marcus interrupted again, "are my daughters, and I own this hotel." The color drained from Karen's face as realization dawned. Whispers spread through the cafe. "Daddy," Zoe sobbed, wrapping her arms around his leg. Marcus knelt down, wiping his daughter's tears with his handkerchief. "It's okay, Zoe. You did nothing wrong. Accidents happen." He looked at all 3 girls, noticing how they huddled together, their small shoulders touching in solidarity. When had they started to look so grown up? When was the last time he'd really seen them, not just glanced at them while working on his phone or laptop? Standing again, he faced Karen. "Ms. Mitchell, you're on administrative leave, effective immediately. Report to Human Resources tomorrow morning. They'll contact me about next steps." Karen's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Marcus gathered his daughters close. "Come on, girls. We're going home." As they walked toward the exit, Marcus felt a weight on his shoulders. Not just the weight of this incident, but of 3 years of emotional distance since his wife Emma's death. He'd buried himself in work, delegating parenting to nannies and school staff. But seeing Zoe about to be humiliated had awakened something he'd kept dormant, his responsibility not just as a provider, but as a father. "Daddy," asked Zoe as they reached the lobby, "why was that lady so mean?" Marcus stopped walking, really looking at his daughter's face. It was a simple question that deserved a real answer. For once, his business empire could wait. "Sometimes people forget what really matters," he said, making a silent promise to never be one of those people again. Marcus led his daughters out of the Grand Plaza Hotel and into the bright afternoon sunlight. He looked down at their small faces, still showing signs of upset from the cafe incident. "I need to make a call," Marcus said, taking out his phone. He dialed his executive assistant. "Janet, cancel all my meetings for the rest of today." "All of them?" Janet's surprised voice came through the speaker. "But sir, you have the merger discussion with Powell at 5 o'clock. He flew in from Chicago just for this meeting." Tell him something came up with my family. We'll reschedule for tomorrow morning." Marcus ended the call and knelt down to eye level with his daughters. "How about we get some ice cream at Central Park instead of going straight home?" "Really?" Zara's eyes widened. "But you always say sweets ruin dinner." "Today is special," Marcus replied, waving for his car. Thomas pulled up promptly, and soon they were headed toward Central Park. Inside the hotel, Karen Mitchell stood frozen by the counter, watching as other cafe staff quickly cleaned the coffee spill. She felt dozens of eyes on her, some filled with shock, others with satisfaction. Her hand trembled slightly as she touched her pearl necklace. "Karen?" April, the young server, approached cautiously. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Karen said sharply. She straightened her red blazer. "I'll be in my office. Handle things here." Karen walked stiffly to her small office behind the kitchen and closed the door. She sat at her desk and stared at the wall, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. She had yelled at the owner's child. She had told a 6-year-old girl to lick coffee off the floor, and the owner had seen everything. "I'm finished," she whispered to herself. "My career is over." At Emerson's ice cream shop near Central Park, Marcus watched his daughters pick their flavors. He realized he didn't know their favorites anymore. When had he stopped paying attention to such simple things? "I want chocolate chip," said Zara decisively. "Strawberry for me?" said Zoe. Zoe looked at all the choices silently before pointing to lemon sorbet. They sat at a small table outside. Marcus put his phone away, focusing entirely on his daughters. "Zoe," he said gently, "are you okay after what happened at the hotel?" Zoe licked her ice cream slowly. "Why was that lady so mad about the coffee?" "I didn't mean to spill it." Marcus took a deep breath. Sometimes adults forget how to be kind when they're stressed or upset, but that doesn't make it right. "She was really scary," Zara added, chocolate ice cream dotting her chin. "Will we see her again?" Zoe asked, concern in her voice. "I don't think so," Marcus said. "Not for a while at least." As they ate, Marcus really listened to his daughters for the first time in months. Zara talked about her math test. Zoe described the new class pet, a hamster named Buttons. Zoe mostly stayed quiet but smiled when her sisters made jokes. Meanwhile, Karen left the Grand Plaza and took the subway back to her apartment in Brooklyn. She ignored the curious glances from hotel staff as she departed. Her phone rang twice during the ride. Both times it was her sister Charlotte. Both times, Karen sent the call to voicemail. Karen's apartment was spotlessly clean and perfectly organized, just like she kept her cafe. She placed her keys in their designated dish by the door and hung her blazer in the closet. Then she stood in the middle of her living room, unsure what to do next. Her phone rang again. Charlotte. Karen silenced it and poured herself a glass of wine. As she raised it to her lips, her hand shook, and wine splashed onto her white shirt. "Perfect," she muttered, the small mishap breaking her composure. She grabbed a towel from the kitchen but pressed too hard, shattering the wine glass in her hand. A small cut opened on her palm. The sight of blood mixing with red wine on her kitchen floor sent Karen sliding down against the cabinets. She sat there as tears finally came, not delicate tears, but ugly, wrenching sobs that left her gasping for breath. Back at his penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Marcus surprised Mrs. Rodriguez, the girls' nanny, by announcing he would put the girls to bed himself tonight. "But, Mr. Johnson, you have your evening calls," Mrs. Rodriguez said, confusion clear on her face. "They can wait," Marcus replied. "I'll handle bedtime tonight." After bath time, which resulted in more water on Marcus than in the tub, he helped the girls into their pajamas. Each girl picked a book, and he read all 3, doing different voices for the characters. The girls giggled at his attempts. As he tucked Zoe in, she looked up at him with serious eyes. "Daddy, why did the lady want me to lick the floor?" Marcus sat on the edge of her bed, struggling to find words a 6-year-old would understand. "She was wrong to say that, Zoe." Adults make mistakes too, sometimes big ones. Was she a bad person? Zoe asked. Marcus thought carefully before answering. I don't think so. I think she was having a very bad day and made a very bad choice, but that doesn't excuse what she did. Will she say sorry? Zoe asked from her bed across the room. I hope so, Marcus said. Everyone deserves a chance to fix their mistakes. After the girls fell asleep, Marcus walked to the window of his living room. The New York City lights spread out before him, millions of people living their lives. Somewhere out there was Karen Mitchell, the woman who had almost made his daughter lick coffee from a floor. His phone buzzed with messages from Janet about tomorrow's rescheduled meetings. For once, Marcus ignored them. Instead, he picked up a silver picture frame from the bookshelf. It held a photo of Emma, his late wife, holding the triplets as newborns. Her smile radiated joy despite how tired she must have been. I've been failing them, Emma, he whispered to the photo. But that changes now. In her Brooklyn apartment, Karen had cleaned up the broken glass and changed her clothes. She sat on her couch in the dark, replaying the afternoon's events. Her sister had left 3 voicemails and 5 text messages, but Karen couldn't bear to hear Charlotte's voice right now. Charlotte, the kindergarten teacher who was naturally good with children. Charlotte, who had warned Karen about her temper for years. Karen's phone lit up with an email notification. It was from Grand Plaza Human Resources, scheduling a meeting for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. The subject line read, Disciplinary Review. She closed her eyes, seeing again the face of the little girl she had terrified. What had happened to her? When had she become someone who would say such a cruel thing to a child? As dawn broke over the city, Marcus made a promise to himself and the photograph of his late wife on his nightstand. I'll be the father they deserve, Emma, starting today. At that same moment, Karen Mitchell finally called her sister back, her voice small in the empty apartment. Charlotte? I think I've done something I can't fix. I'll come over right now, Charlotte said firmly through the phone. Don't do anything silly, Karen. Just wait for me. It's 5:30 in the morning, Karen protested weakly, still sitting in the dark of her apartment. I don't care what time it is. I'm coming, Charlotte replied before hanging up. Karen set her phone down and walked to the kitchen. She filled a glass with water and drank it slowly. The morning light began to filter through her windows as she waited for her sister. Across town, Marcus Johnson sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open. Janet, his executive assistant, had sent him a revised schedule for the week. Good morning, Janet, Marcus said when she answered his call. About today's schedule, I need some changes. What kind of changes, sir? Janet asked, surprise evident in her voice. I want my afternoons clear this week. Move anything after 3 o'clock to mornings or to next week. But sir, the board meeting on Wednesday. Move it to 9 in the morning, Marcus interrupted, and call Westfield Academy. I'd like to meet with their school counselor today, if possible. After finishing the call, Marcus checked the time. 6:15. The triplets wouldn't be awake for another hour. He opened Karen Mitchell's employee file, which HR had sent overnight. 5 years at the Grand Plaza with no complaints. Consistent profit increases. Excellent inventory management. Her performance reviews praised her efficiency but noted she could improve her interpersonal approach. The doorbell rang at Karen's apartment. She opened it to find Charlotte standing there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back hastily. You look terrible, Charlotte said, stepping inside and hugging her sister. Thanks, Karen replied dryly. Charlotte put her purse down and looked around the spotless apartment. Okay, tell me everything. What happened? Karen sat down on her couch. I told a child to lick spilled coffee off the floor of my cafe. Charlotte's eyes widened. You what? It gets worse, Karen continued. The child was the owner's daughter. The owner of the entire hotel. He saw everything. Oh, Karen, Charlotte sighed, sitting beside her sister. What were you thinking? I wasn't thinking, Karen admitted. I was angry about Mom's call, and then this kid spilled coffee all over my clean floor. Her voice trailed off. Charlotte took Karen's hand. Mom's cancer diagnosis is scary, but you can't take it out on innocent children. I know that, Karen snapped. I'm going to lose my job, Charlotte. Probably my whole career. Maybe, Charlotte said. But right now, I'm more worried about you. This isn't just about a job. You need help managing your emotions. Karen pulled her hand away. I don't need therapy, if that's what you're suggesting. Actually, you do, Charlotte replied firmly. Michael said the same thing before your divorce. Remember? Karen looked away. Don't bring Michael into this. He called me yesterday, Charlotte said quietly. Someone he knows saw what happened at the cafe. He's worried about you. Great, Karen muttered. So my ex-husband knows I'm losing my mind too. You're not losing your mind, Charlotte insisted. You're hurting and you don't know how to handle it. That's why people see therapists. Later that morning, Marcus sat in a small office at Westfield Academy. Dr. Lisa Simmons, the school counselor, had a kind face and spoke in a calm voice. Thank you for meeting with me so quickly, Marcus said. Of course, Mr. Johnson, Dr. Simmons replied. May I ask what prompted this meeting? Marcus described the incident at the cafe. I'm concerned about how it might affect Zoe especially. She's the most sensitive of the three. Dr. Simmons nodded. Children process upsetting events differently than adults. How did Zoe seem last night and this morning? Quieter than usual, Marcus admitted. She asked why the manager wanted her to lick the floor. And what did you tell her? That adults sometimes make mistakes when they're upset, Marcus replied. Was that wrong? Dr. Simmons smiled. Not at all. It was honest and age-appropriate. Mr. Johnson, children are remarkably resilient. What matters most is how the adults around them respond. I realize I haven't been as present as I should be, Marcus said. Since their mother died, I've buried myself in work. It's not uncommon, Dr. Simmons assured him. Grief affects us all differently, but it's never too late to change course. What should I do about the cafe incident? Marcus asked. Dr. Simmons thought for a moment. This could actually be a valuable opportunity to teach your daughters about empathy and forgiveness. They're at an age where they're developing their moral understanding. Forgiveness? Marcus repeated. You think they should forgive someone who humiliated them? I think this situation provides a real-world lesson about human complexity, Dr. Simmons explained. The cafe manager behaved terribly, yes, but people are more than their worst moments. Your daughters might benefit from seeing that. Back at her apartment, Karen sat across from Charlotte at the kitchen table. Her laptop was open to job listings. There's nothing, Karen said, scrolling through the page. No one will hire me after this gets out. You don't know that, Charlotte countered, and you haven't even had your meeting with HR yet. Karen checked the time. 8:45. I should get ready. Promise me you'll consider therapy, Charlotte said. I have a colleague who's excellent. Dr. Bennett. He specializes in anger management and emotional regulation. Karen hesitated, then nodded. Fine. I'll consider it. At the Johnson penthouse, Marcus spent the morning observing his daughters as they played. Mrs. Rodriguez had suggested they stay home from school for the day, and Marcus agreed. In the playroom, Zara organized her toys by size and color, creating neat rows of stuffed animals and dolls. Daddy, look, Zara called to him. I made a pattern. Big, small, and also blue, red, green. That's very clever, Marcus said, noticing how her mind naturally sought order and patterns. In the kitchen, Zoe helped Mrs. Rodriguez bake cookies. She carefully measured ingredients and mixed the dough. These cookies are for you, Daddy, Zoe said when she noticed him watching. Because you read us 3 stories last night instead of 1. Thank you, Zoe, Marcus replied, touched by her thoughtfulness. He found Zoe sitting quietly by the window, drawing in her sketchbook. He sat down beside her. What are you drawing, Zoe? He asked gently. Zoe tilted her sketchbook to show him. It was a picture of a woman in a red jacket. The woman had a sad face. "Is that the lady from the cafe?" Marcus asked. Zoe nodded. "She looks sad in my picture because I think she was sad inside. That's why she was mean." Marcus stared at his daughter, amazed by her insight. "Why do you think she was sad?" Zoe shrugged. "People are mean when they're sad sometimes. Like when Zara broke my blue crayon and I said her drawing was ugly. I was sad about my crayon, not really mad at her drawing." At 10 o'clock, Karen sat across from Diane Parker in the Grand Plaza's Human Resources office. Diane, a woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair, reviewed papers in a folder. "Ms. Mitchell," Diane began, "I've been reviewing your employment history with us. 5 years. Consistently excellent performance reviews from a business standpoint." Karen nodded stiffly. "However," Diane continued, "there have been some notes about your management style. Intimidating. Excessively critical. Creates a tense work environment." "I maintain high standards," Karen said defensively. "There's a difference between high standards and creating fear," Diane replied. "Yesterday's incident crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed." "I understand," Karen said, her voice small. "Will I be allowed to resign instead of being fired?" Diane closed the folder. "Mr. Johnson has requested to handle this matter personally. He'll meet with you later this week to discuss your future with the company." Karen's eyes widened. "He wants to meet with me?" "Yes," Diane confirmed. "Until then, you remain on administrative leave." That evening, Marcus sat at his desk, looking at Karen's employment file again. Next to it was Zoe's drawing of the sad woman in the red jacket. His phone rang. It was Diane from HR. "Mr. Johnson, I met with Ms. Mitchell this morning as instructed." "And?" Marcus asked. "She seemed genuinely remorseful," Diane reported. "Though I should note that her file shows excellent business results but consistent issues with interpersonal skills." Marcus looked at Zoe's drawing again. "Thank you, Diane. I'll take it from here." After hanging up, Marcus walked to the girls' bedroom. They were already in their pajamas, getting ready for bed. "Daddy," Zoe said when she saw him, "I finished my drawing." She handed him the picture of the woman in the red jacket. "Do you think Ms. Karen is still sad, Daddy?" Marcus took the drawing, realizing his response would shape not just his daughter's understanding of forgiveness, but his own as well. Marcus knelt down beside Zoe's bed, still holding her drawing of Karen. "I think everyone feels sad sometimes, Zoe. Maybe she was sad that day. Can we help her not be sad?" Zoe asked. Marcus looked at all three girls. "That's a very kind question. Let me think about it." After tucking the girls in, Marcus called Janet to schedule a meeting with Karen for the following Monday morning. As he prepared for bed, he decided to take the girls somewhere special on Saturday, somewhere they hadn't been since Emma died. A week after the cafe incident, Karen Mitchell sat in a comfortable chair across from Dr. Bennett in his office near Park Slope. This was her second therapy session. "How are you feeling today, Karen?" Dr. Bennett asked, his voice gentle. Karen twisted her pearl necklace. "Nervous. I meet with Mr. Johnson on Monday to learn if I still have a job." "That must be stressful." Dr. Bennett nodded. "Last time we talked about your reaction at the cafe. You mentioned there was a phone call just before the incident?" Karen's hand tightened around her necklace. "Yes. It was from my mother." "What did she tell you?" Karen took a deep breath. "She has cancer, stage 3. The doctors found it during her annual checkup." Her voice broke slightly. "She called me between the health inspection and the lunch rush." Dr. Bennett leaned forward. "That's incredibly difficult news to receive, especially during a stressful workday." "I didn't tell anyone," Karen continued. "I just pushed it down and kept working. Then that little girl spilled the coffee and I—" She stopped, shaking her head. "I became my mother." "What do you mean by that?" Karen wiped away a tear. growing up, if I spilled something or made a mess, my mother she'd say terrible things, make me feel worthless over small mistakes. I promised myself I'd never be like her, and then I did exactly what she would have done. The patterns we learn in childhood can be powerful, Dr. Bennett said. Recognizing them is the first step to changing them. My mother arrives tomorrow, Karen said. She's staying with me during her first round of treatments. How do you feel about that? Karen laughed without humor, terrified. That same Saturday morning, Marcus drove his daughters to the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens. The girls were excited about the special outing. "Where are we going, Daddy?" Zara asked from the back seat. "Somewhere your mother loved," Marcus replied. "The Botanic Gardens." The girls grew quiet. Marcus watched in the rearview mirror as they exchanged glances. "Will we see Mommy's bench?" Zoe finally asked. Marcus nodded, surprised they remembered. "Yes, if you want to." The girls had been only 3 years old when Emma died. After her death, Marcus had donated a bench in her favorite spot in the gardens, but he'd only taken the girls there once for the dedication ceremony. When they arrived, the gardens were peaceful and blooming with early summer flowers. Marcus held Zoe and Zara's hands while Zoe walked slightly ahead, leading the way despite having been there only once before. "It's this way," Zoe said confidently, "near the rose garden." They found the bench under a flowering cherry tree. A small plaque read, "Emma Johnson, beloved wife and mother, her love blooms eternally." The girls touched the plaque gently. Marcus sat on the bench and lifted each girl up beside him. "Your mother used to bring me here when we were dating," Marcus said. "She knew the names of all the flowers." "I don't remember her voice anymore," Zara admitted quietly. Marcus felt a pang in his chest. She had a soft voice, but she laughed loud. Really loud. It would make everyone around her smile. "Did she like to garden?" Zoe asked. Marcus nodded. "She had the most amazing garden on our terrace before you girls were born. She grew vegetables and flowers." "We could make a garden," Zara suggested, sitting up straighter. "On our terrace, like Mommy did." "That's a wonderful idea," Marcus said, surprised he hadn't thought of it himself. "We could plant her favorite flowers." As the family spent time in the gardens, Karen was cleaning her already spotless apartment. Her mother, Elaine Mitchell, would arrive in just a few hours. The doorbell rang much earlier than Karen expected. When she opened the door, Elaine stood there with a small suitcase, her gray hair perfectly styled despite the early flight from Boston. "The taxi driver was actually competent for once," Elaine said instead of hello. "I got here an hour early." Karen stepped aside. "Come in, Mom. How was your flight?" Elaine entered, her eyes scanning the apartment critically. "Bumpy. This place is still too small for what you pay. New York is highway robbery." "It's close to work," Karen replied, taking her mother's suitcase. Elaine removed her coat and handed it to Karen. "Speaking of work, Charlotte mentioned you had some trouble." She was vague about details. Karen's stomach tightened. "We can talk about that later." "Are you hungry? Tired?" "I want to know what happened, Karen," Elaine insisted. "Did you lose your temper again?" "I made a mistake at work," Karen admitted. "A serious one." "With your history, I'm not surprised," Elaine said, sitting on the couch. "Remember when you threw that tantrum at your piano recital? Your teacher never looked at us the same way again." "I was 8 years old, Mom, and clearly not much has changed," Elaine replied. "So, will you be fired?" Karen sighed. "I don't know yet. I meet with the owner on Monday." "Well, at least you have your apartment organized," Elaine observed, "though that vase is crooked on the shelf." At the Grand Plaza Hotel, weekend staff worked the busy Saturday lunch service in the cafe. April, the young server who had witnessed the incident with the triplets, refilled the napkin holder at the counter, the same one Zoe had reached for. "I heard Karen meets with Mr. Johnson on Monday," said Roberto, the new barista. "I bet she's done for," April replied. "You didn't see how angry he was." "Good riddance," muttered Luis. a busboy who had worked there for 2 years. She made me stay late 3 times last month because the floor wasn't spotless enough. That's not fair, said Diego, the executive chef, who had entered from the kitchen in time to hear their conversation. Karen has high standards because she cares about this place. She told a child to lick coffee off the floor, April said. How do you defend that? Diego shook his head. I'm not defending what she did. It was terrible. But Karen is more than one bad moment. Easy for you to say, Luis scoffed. She respects you. The rest of us are just ants to her. Diego crossed his arms. When my wife had complications with her pregnancy last year, who adjusted my schedule so I could take her to every doctor's appointment? Karen did that. She covered shifts herself when we were short-staffed. The staff fell silent, considering this side of their manager they rarely saw. Still, April said finally, what she did to that little girl. I know, Diego nodded. I'm just saying people are complicated. I'm going to speak to Mr. Johnson before he makes his decision. Later that afternoon, Marcus and the girls returned home from the Botanic Gardens. The triplets ran to their room to gather art supplies. We're going to draw plans for Mommy's garden, Zara announced. As the girls worked at the dining table, Janet called Marcus. Sir, Diego Alvarez, the executive chef from the cafe, has requested a brief meeting with you on Monday before you meet with Ms. Mitchell. What about? Marcus asked. He wouldn't say specifically, but it seems related to Miss Mitchell. Fine, schedule him for 9:30, Marcus said. At Karen's apartment, dinner with her mother had turned into a critique of every aspect of Karen's life. Your chicken is dry, Elaine said, putting down her fork. I've told you 100 times you cook it too long. Karen pushed food around her plate. I'll remember next time. So, this meeting on Monday, Elaine continued. What will you say to save your job? I don't know if I can save it, Karen admitted, or if I should. What I did was inexcusable. Don't be dramatic, Elaine waved dismissively. Children are resilient. I said much worse to you, and you turned out fine. Karen looked at her mother sharply. Did I? I'm divorced, I have no friends, and I just destroyed my career by traumatizing a child. Is that your definition of fine? Elaine's face hardened. Don't take that tone with me. I'm the one with cancer, remember? The words hung in the air between them. Karen's phone dinged with an email notification. It was from Marcus Johnson's office, confirming their meeting at 10 o'clock Monday morning. That's him? Elaine asked. Karen nodded. Well, Elaine said, standing to clear her barely touched dinner, I suppose we'll see what kind of man he is. A serious businessman would understand that standards must be maintained. Karen watched her mother move around her kitchen, criticizing the organization of the cabinets. For the first time, she clearly saw the connection between her upbringing and her behavior at the cafe. At the Johnson penthouse, Marcus looked through Emma's old photos, finding one of her pregnant with the triplets, standing in her garden on the terrace. She was laughing, her hands covered in soil, her face radiant with joy. His phone chimed with an email from Westfield Academy. Principal Rivera wanted to discuss a surprising request the triplets had made regarding the coffee lady. Marcus called Principal Rivera first thing Monday morning to schedule a meeting before his appointments at the Grand Plaza. He arrived at Westfield Academy at 8 o'clock, curious about the email regarding his daughters. Principal Rivera welcomed him into her office. She was a tall woman with a warm smile and a colorful scarf around her neck. Thank you for coming so quickly, Mr. Johnson, she said, gesturing for him to sit. Your email mentioned my daughters made a request about the cafe manager? Marcus asked. Principal Rivera nodded and opened a folder on her desk. Dr. Simmons, our counselor, had a session with the girls to help them process what happened at the cafe. She asked them to draw pictures expressing their feelings. She handed Marcus 3 drawings. He expected to see scary pictures of the angry cafe manager. Instead, each drawing showed something completely different. Zara's drawing showed a woman in a red jacket standing with 3 small figures. Each figure was giving the woman a different colored flower. In careful handwriting at the bottom, Zara had written, Everyone makes mistakes. Zoe's picture showed the same woman sitting alone on a bench, looking sad. A speech bubble above her head read, "I'm sorry." Zoe's drawing was the most detailed. It showed the woman in the red jacket with tears on her face. 3 small girls were holding her hands. At the bottom, Zoe had written, "Daddy taught us forgiveness." "I'm surprised," Marcus said, studying the pictures. "They seem more concerned about Miss Mitchell than afraid of her." "Children often have remarkable capacity for empathy," Principal Rivera explained. The girls asked if they could give these drawings to the coffee lady to make her feel better. They seem worried about her. Marcus looked at the drawings again. They're worried about her? Especially Zoe. She told Dr. Simmons that the lady must have a very big hurt inside to be so mean. Across town in her Brooklyn apartment, Karen stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her navy blue blazer instead of her usual red one. She had barely slept, rehearsing what to say to Marcus Johnson. Elaine appeared in the doorway. "The blue makes you look weak. Wear the red." "I always wear red," Karen replied. "Today I need to look less intimidating." Elaine scoffed. "You're going to beg for your job. At least do it with some dignity." Karen turned to face her mother. "I'm not begging. I'm accepting whatever consequences come from my actions." "Dramatic as always," Elaine said, checking her watch. "What time is your medical appointment today?" 2 o'clock. I'll be back in time to take you." Elaine straightened Karen's collar unnecessarily. "I still think you should explain the circumstances. Tell him you just learned about my cancer. Any reasonable person would understand." "That explains my behavior. It doesn't excuse it," Karen said firmly. They took the subway into Manhattan together. The train was crowded with Monday morning commuters. Karen held onto a pole while Elaine complained about the lack of seats. As they approached the Grand Plaza Hotel, Karen stopped outside the gleaming entrance. "I'd prefer to go in alone," she told her mother. "After I came all this way to support you?" Elaine protested. "Please, Mom." "This is hard enough." Elaine pursed her lips. "Fine. I'll wait in the lobby. Text me when you're done so I know whether to console you or congratulate you." They entered the hotel. Karen felt eyes on her as they crossed the lobby. She wondered how many staff knew about the incident with the triplets. "Wait here," Karen told her mother, pointing to a seating area with plush chairs. "I'll be back soon." "Good luck," Elaine said, though her tone suggested she expected the worst. Karen rode the elevator to the executive floor. Her heart pounded as the numbers increased. She had been in this building thousands of times but never felt so nervous. Meanwhile, Marcus had returned to the Grand Plaza and was meeting with Diego Alvarez, the executive chef. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Johnson," Diego said, sitting across from Marcus's desk. "Janet said you wanted to speak about Karen Mitchell," Marcus replied. Diego nodded. "Yes, sir. I know what happened with your daughters was terrible. There's no excuse for it. But," Marcus prompted. "But Karen is more than that one moment," Diego said. "When my wife was pregnant last year, she had complications that required many medical appointments. Karen rearranged my schedule every week so I could take Maria to every single doctor visit. She never complained, even when it meant she had to cover shifts herself." "That's commendable," Marcus acknowledged. "She's tough, yes. Sometimes too tough," Diego continued. "But she cares about people in her own way. I just thought you should know that before making your decision." After Diego left, Marcus reviewed Karen's file one more time. He placed the triplets' drawings on his desk just as Janet knocked on his door. "Ms. Mitchell is here for her 10 o'clock appointment," Janet announced. "Send her in," Marcus replied. Karen entered Marcus's office, surprised by how different it was from what she expected. Instead of cold and corporate, the space felt warm. Children's artwork hung on the walls alongside business awards. Family photos sat on his desk next to industry accolades. "Ms. Mitchell," Marcus said, standing to greet her. "Please, have a seat." "Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Johnson," Karen said formally, sitting across from him. Marcus returned to his chair. "I've been reviewing your employment history with the Grand Plaza. I understand if you've decided to terminate my position," Karen said. "What I did was inexcusable." 5 years with no complaints, Marcus continued as if she hadn't spoken. "Consistent profit increases, excellent inventory management." He looked at her directly. "That's quite a record." Karen blinked in confusion. "Thank you, but that doesn't change what happened with your daughter." "No, it doesn't," Marcus agreed. He picked up a folder from his desk. "My daughter's school principal sent this to me this morning." He slid the folder across the desk. Karen opened it hesitantly, finding the 3 drawings inside. She stared at them in disbelief. "I don't understand," she whispered. "My daughters are worried about you," Marcus explained. "They think you must be very sad inside to have acted that way." Karen looked at Zoe's drawing with its message about forgiveness. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away. "They're very kind," she said softly, "like their father." Before Marcus could respond, the office door opened. Janet appeared, looking flustered. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, sir, but—" She was cut off as the triplets pushed past her into the office, followed by an apologetic Mrs. Rodriguez. "I'm very sorry, Mr. Johnson," Mrs. Rodriguez said quickly. "The girls insisted on coming here after I picked them up from their half-day at school." They were very determined. The triplets, still in their blue Westfield Academy uniforms, stood together just inside the doorway, staring at Karen. "We wanted to be here," Zara announced with confidence. Marcus looked as surprised as Karen. "This wasn't planned," he admitted. Zoe, the most compassionate of the triplets, stepped forward while her sisters hung back. She looked directly at Karen, her young face serious. "Ms. Williams at school says when people do wrong things, sometimes they're hurting inside," Zoe said clearly. "Are you hurting inside, Ms. Karen?" The simple question broke through Karen's carefully constructed walls. To her horror and Marcus's visible discomfort, she began to cry. Really cry. For the first time in public. Tears streamed down her face as she tried unsuccessfully to stop them. "I'm sorry," she gasped, fumbling in her purse for a tissue. "I'm so sorry." Zoe moved closer and placed her small hand on Karen's arm. "It's okay to cry when you're sad. Daddy cries sometimes when he looks at Mommy's pictures." Karen looked at Marcus, who seemed torn between embarrassment and appreciation for his daughter's honesty. "Yes," Karen finally answered Zoe's question. "I am hurting inside. I found out my mother is very sick and I was scared and upset, but that was no reason to be cruel to you or your sisters. I'm truly sorry." "Is your mommy going to die?" Zara asked bluntly from where she stood. "Zara!" Marcus said sharply. "That's not appropriate." "It's okay," Karen said, wiping her tears. "The doctors are trying to help her get better, but yes, she could die if the treatment doesn't work." Zoe, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward and handed Karen a new drawing. "I made this for you today." The drawing showed a woman with a sad face and another woman with a kind face holding hands. "Is this me?" Karen asked, pointing to the sad-faced figure. Zoe nodded. "And that's your mommy. She needs you to be kind to her even if she's not kind to you. That's what my daddy taught us." Karen looked up at Marcus, wondering what kind of man could raise such emotionally intelligent children while running a business empire. The same man who now held her professional fate in his hands. Marcus cleared his throat, regaining his composure. "Mrs. Rodriguez, could you please take the girls for ice cream in the executive dining room? I need to finish my conversation with Miss Mitchell." "Of course, Mr. Johnson," Mrs. Rodriguez replied, clearly relieved. "Come along, girls." "Can we come back later?" Zara asked. "We'll see," Marcus answered. "Go enjoy your ice cream for now." The triplets followed Mrs. Rodriguez out of the office, with Zoe turning to wave goodbye to Karen. When the door closed, Karen wiped her face with a tissue. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I never cry in front of people." It seems today is full of unexpected moments, Marcus replied. He paused, studying her face. Tell me what happened last week, Miss Mitchell. The real story. Karen took a deep breath. That morning I received a call from my mother's doctor. She has stage 3 breast cancer. The health inspector was at the cafe, 2 staff members called in sick, and I just pushed everything down. When your daughter spilled the coffee, all my emotions came out as anger. She shook her head. It explains my behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. No, it doesn't, Marcus agreed. But I understand more than you might think. He turned a silver picture frame on his desk to face her. It showed a beautiful woman with 3 newborn babies. My wife, Emma, died 3 years ago from cancer. I buried myself in work rather than face my grief or be fully present for my daughters. I'm sorry for your loss, Karen said softly. When I saw what happened at the cafe, it forced me to confront how disconnected I've been, Marcus continued. In an odd way, that terrible moment was a wake-up call for me as a father. Karen looked surprised. I never imagined something good could come from what I did. Which brings me to why you're here, Marcus said. I've been considering different options for your future with the Grand Plaza. Karen sat up straighter, preparing herself. I understand if you want my resignation. Actually, I have a different proposal, Marcus replied. He leaned forward, hands clasped on his desk. Before Emma died, she was deeply involved with the Johnson Family Foundation. We support children with terminal illnesses, creating special experiences for them when they visit our hotels. Karen nodded, unsure where this was going. I'm proposing a split role, Marcus explained. You would continue managing the cafe in the mornings, but your afternoons would be dedicated to working with the foundation. You would help create personalized experiences for these children and their families when they stay with us. Karen's eyes widened. Working with children? Mr. Johnson, after what happened, do you really think that's appropriate? I think it's exactly what both you and these families need, Marcus said firmly. You have exceptional organizational skills. You're detail-oriented and efficient. Those qualities could create truly special moments for children who have very little time left. I don't know what to say, Karen admitted. This is not at all what I expected. You'd work with Dr. Jessica Reynolds, our child psychologist, to understand how to interact appropriately with ill children and their families, Marcus continued. There would be a 3-month probationary period with regular evaluations. Karen was silent for a moment, processing everything. May I ask why you're giving me this chance? Marcus looked at the drawings on his desk. Because my daughters see something in you worth saving. And because everyone deserves an opportunity to be more than their worst moment. He paused. I know something about second chances, Ms. Mitchell. After Emma died, I made many mistakes as a father. I'm trying to do better now. Karen nodded slowly. Thank you. This is incredibly generous. It's not charity, Marcus clarified. It's a business decision. Your skills can benefit these children, and perhaps helping others will help you too. After discussing the details of the new arrangement, Karen left Marcus's office. Her head was spinning as she rode the elevator down to the lobby where her mother waited. Elaine stood as soon as she spotted Karen. Well? Elaine demanded. Are you fired? Karen shook her head. No. He offered me a new position. I'll still manage the cafe part-time, but I'll also work with the Johnson Family Foundation, creating experiences for children with terminal illnesses. Instead of looking pleased, Elaine frowned. That sounds like charity to me. He feels sorry for you. It's not charity, Mom. It's a chance to use my skills differently. Working with sick children? Please. Elaine waved her hand dismissively. He's demoting you and dressing it up as an opportunity. Karen felt her frustration rising. Why can't you just be happy I still have a job? Because I raised you to be a leader, not someone's assistant planning parties for dying children, Elaine snapped, her voice getting louder. Lower your voice, Karen said, noticing nearby hotel guests turning to look. I will not, Elaine continued. This is ridiculous. You should have told him about my diagnosis, made him understand the circumstances. I did tell him, Karen replied. But unlike you, I don't use illness as an excuse for bad behavior. Elaine's face flushed with anger. How dare you speak to me that way? I flew across the country to support you. You came because you need someone to take you to treatments, Karen interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. Let's be honest for once. Their argument was drawing attention from everyone in the lobby. Hotel staff looked uncomfortable but unsure whether to intervene. Just then, the elevator doors opened and the triplets emerged with Mrs. Rodriguez finished with their ice cream. Zoe noticed Karen immediately. Look, it's Ms. Karen. Before Mrs. Rodriguez could stop them, the girls hurried across the lobby. They stopped short when they saw Karen arguing with an older woman. Is that your mommy? Zoe asked Karen, clutching a folded piece of paper in her hand. Karen turned, surprised to see the triplets. Yes, this is my mother, Elaine Mitchell. Mom, these are Mr. Johnson's daughters. Elaine forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Hello, children. Zoe stepped forward, holding out her folded paper. I made you another drawing, Ms. Karen. It's for good luck at your new job. Karen knelt down to accept the drawing, opening it to find a colorful picture of herself in her red blazer, surrounded by smiling stick figures. Thank you, Zoe. This is beautiful. My daddy says you're going to help kids who are sick feel better when they visit the hotel, Zara added. That's a very important job. Elaine watched this exchange with narrowed eyes. The contrast between her coldness and the children's warmth was striking to everyone nearby. We have to go now, Mrs. Rodriguez said, gently gathering the girls. Your father is waiting. As they walked away, Karen stood up, still holding Zoe's drawing. She turned to her mother, whose face had softened slightly. Those are the children you yelled at? Elaine asked quietly. Karen nodded. The one who gave me the drawing is the one who spilled the coffee. And she's making you pictures now? Elaine shook her head in disbelief. I don't understand children today. Karen looked at her mother with new clarity. It's called forgiveness, Mom. Something I never learned growing up. Elaine looked away, uncomfortable with this observation. We'll be late for my doctor's appointment if we don't leave now. After the appointment, Karen returned to her apartment alone. Elaine had decided to rest at the hospital for additional tests. Karen sat on her couch with her phone, staring at Marcus Johnson's business card with his direct number written on the back. She dialed before she could change her mind. Johnson speaking, Marcus answered. Mr. Johnson, this is Karen Mitchell. I want to formally accept your offer. I'm pleased to hear that, Marcus replied. Can you start tomorrow? Yes, Karen said. And thank you, not just for the job, but for your daughters. They taught me something important today. They tend to do that, Marcus said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. They teach me something new every day. After hanging up, Karen looked at Zoe's drawing again. The little girl had written, "Good luck," in crooked letters at the bottom of the page. Karen carefully pinned it to her refrigerator, the first piece of children's artwork that had ever decorated her home. The next morning, Karen arrived at the Grand Plaza wearing her usual red blazer. She took a deep breath before entering the cafe where her staff would be preparing for the morning rush. As she walked in, the usual busy movement stuttered to a halt. April, Roberto, Luis, and the other staff stared at her with uncertainty. Good morning, Karen said, her voice less sharp than usual. We have a lot to discuss. Diego emerged from the kitchen, giving her an encouraging nod. Welcome back, Karen. Karen looked around at the cafe, the marble counter where Zoe had spilled the coffee, the gleaming floors, the nervous faces of her staff. This was her domain, but it would be different now. She would be different. Thank you, Diego, she replied. I'd like to call a staff meeting before we open. There are going to be some changes around here. The staff gathered nervously in the cafe before opening time. Karen stood at the front, her red blazer as crisp as always, but her demeanor noticeably different. I owe all of you an apology, she began, surprising everyone. My behavior last week with Mr. Johnson's daughter was inexcusable. It also made me realize I haven't been the kind of manager you deserve. The staff exchanged confused glances. Luis, the busboy, whispered to April, "Is this really Karen?" "Starting today, I'll be working here mornings only," Karen continued. "In the afternoons, I'll be working with the Johnson Family Foundation. Tom will be promoted to assistant manager to help cover the shift change." Tom, a server who had been there for 3 years, looked startled. "During the time I am here," Karen said, "I still expect excellence. Clean floors, perfect coffee, exceptional service. But I also expect us to treat each other with respect." She paused. "And that starts with me." After the meeting, Diego approached Karen. "That couldn't have been easy." "Hardest speech I've ever given," Karen admitted. "They looked at me like I grew a second head." "Give them time," Diego advised. "They'll adjust." Later that afternoon, Karen nervously entered a bright office on the 3rd floor of the Grand Plaza. Dr. Jessica Reynolds, the foundation's child psychologist, greeted her with a warm smile. "Welcome, Karen. I've heard so much about you." "All bad, I assume," Karen replied stiffly. Dr. Reynolds laughed. "Actually, Marcus spoke highly of your organizational skills. That's what these children need, someone who can create order from chaos." Karen relaxed slightly. "I know nothing about working with children. That's why I'm here," Dr. Reynolds said, gesturing for Karen to sit. "Let's start with some basics about how seriously ill children experience the world." Across town in his office, Marcus was ending his workday early. Janet stood in his doorway, looking confused. "You're leaving at 3 o'clock?" she asked. "It's Wednesday," Marcus explained, packing his laptop. "Daddy-daughter Wednesday is now a permanent fixture on my calendar." "But the Tokyo investors will understand family commitments," Marcus interrupted. "I'll call them from home after the girls are in bed." At Westfield Academy, the triplets were surprised to see their father waiting outside when school ended. "Daddy!" they shouted, running to him. "What are you doing here?" Zara asked. "Where's Mrs. Rodriguez?" "I gave her the afternoon off," Marcus said. "Wednesdays are now our special day. Just the 4 of us." "Every Wednesday?" Zoe asked, her eyes wide. "Every Wednesday," Marcus confirmed. "What will we do today?" Zoe wanted to know. "I thought we'd visit the Empire State Building," Marcus replied. "Would you like that?" The girls cheered. On the drive uptown, Marcus put his phone on silent, something he'd never done during business hours before. At the Empire State Building, Marcus watched Zara's eyes light up as she stared at the architecture. "Did you know this building has 6,000 windows?" she told her father. "How do you know that?" Marcus asked, surprised. "I read it in my architecture book," Zara explained. "I like buildings. They're neat and organized and have clear rules like math." Marcus realized he hadn't known about this interest. "Maybe next week we could visit some other famous buildings in the city." "Can we go to the Flatiron Building?" Zara asked excitedly. "It's shaped like a triangle." For the next month, Karen split her days between the cafe and the foundation. Mornings were still busy, but she found herself speaking differently to staff. When Luis prevented a customer from spilling coffee by quickly placing a napkin under a wobbling cup, Karen surprised everyone by saying, "Quick thinking, Luis. Thank you." Luis looked so shocked he almost dropped the napkin. Her afternoons with Dr. Reynolds taught her how to speak to ill children and their families. She learned that clear information helped reduce anxiety, that children needed choices to feel in control, and that small details made a big difference in making a hospital room feel less scary. "These children know they're sick," Dr. Reynolds explained. "They don't need forced cheerfulness. They need authenticity and respect." Karen nodded, taking careful notes. "I can do that." One evening, Karen sat across from her mother in Dr. Bennett's office. Elaine had reluctantly agreed to attend therapy together after her first round of cancer treatment left her weaker than expected. "Elaine," Dr. Bennett said gently, "can you tell Karen how you felt when she was growing up?" What do you mean, how I felt?" Elaine asked defensively. "I raised her to be successful, to have standards." "Were your parents strict with you?" Dr. Bennett asked. Elaine's face changed slightly. "My father never accepted anything less than perfection. A B+ on a report card meant no dinner." Karen looked at her mother in shock. "You never told me that." "Why would I?" Elaine said. "The past is the past." "Sometimes," Dr. Bennett suggested, "the past continues to live in how we treat others." Elaine was quiet for a long moment. "My father told me I was worthless if I made mistakes," she finally admitted. "I didn't want you to ever feel worthless, Karen. I thought pushing you to be perfect would protect you." It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. At the Johnson penthouse, Marcus discovered Zoe's love of cooking during another Wednesday afternoon. He had planned to order pizza, but Zoe had other ideas. "Can we make dinner instead?" she asked. "I'm not much of a cook," Marcus admitted. "I'll show you," Zoe said confidently. "Mrs. Rodriguez taught me." Marcus watched in amazement as his 6-year-old daughter confidently measured ingredients for pasta sauce, explaining each step as she went. "You add basil at the end, not the beginning," Zoe instructed, "and a little bit of sugar makes the tomatoes less sour." "When did you learn all this?" Marcus asked. "I like to help in the kitchen," Zoe explained, stirring the sauce carefully. "It makes people happy when they eat something you made." Another Wednesday, Marcus found Zoe creating elaborate stories for her stuffed animals. Her quiet voice changed for each character, creating whole worlds with just her imagination. "That's an amazing story," Marcus said after listening for several minutes. "I make up stories every night before I sleep," Zoe said shyly. "Mommy used to make up stories with me." Marcus felt a pang in his chest. "I didn't know that." "She made the best voices," Zoe said, smiling at the memory. "Maybe we could write down some of your stories," Marcus suggested. "Make our own book." Zoe's face lit up. "With pictures?" "Definitely with pictures." Back at the Grand Plaza, Karen was preparing for her first foundation family. She had created a detailed binder with information about 8-year-old Lily Parker, who had leukemia, and her parents. "Lily loves butterflies and the color purple," Karen told the hotel staff. "Her room has been decorated accordingly. Her treatments make her tired in the mornings, but more energetic in the afternoons. All staff should check this schedule before planning activities." The staff nodded, somewhat intimidated by Karen's thoroughness but impressed by her commitment. When the Parker family arrived, Karen felt a wave of nervousness. Lily was thin and pale, with a colorful scarf wrapped around her hairless head. Her parents looked exhausted. "Welcome to the Grand Plaza," Karen said, kneeling to Lily's eye level. "My name is Karen, and I've been looking forward to meeting you." "Are you the lady who planned our trip?" Lily asked quietly. "I am," Karen confirmed, "and I have something special for you." She handed Lily a purple backpack. Inside was a map of the hotel with a butterfly-themed scavenger hunt specially designed for Lily's energy levels. "Mom, look!" Lily exclaimed, showing her mother the map. "Butterflies!" "This is wonderful," Mrs. Parker said to Karen. "She's been so excited about this trip." Karen showed the family to their suite where butterfly decorations transformed the space into a purple paradise. Lily gasped when she saw it. "It's just how I imagined." Later that evening, as Lily completed the last stop on her scavenger hunt, finding a stuffed butterfly in the hotel gift shop, Karen held up her hand for a high five. Lily slapped her small palm against Karen's. "You did it!" Karen said, genuinely happy for the child. Mrs. Parker pulled Karen aside with tears in her eyes. "Thank you. We haven't seen her this excited in months. The treatments have been so hard." "It was my pleasure," Karen replied, surprised to find she truly meant it. When Marcus received a photo from Dr. Reynolds showing Karen high-fiving Lily Parker, he forwarded it to Dr. Reynolds with a simple question: "Are we witnessing a miracle?" Dr. Reynolds texted back to Marcus, "Not a miracle, just proof that people can change when given the right opportunity." 3 months passed quickly. Karen became known for her exceptional work with the foundation families. Children who stayed at the Grand Plaza received personalized experiences that made their difficult lives brighter. Parents often cried when thanking her, which still made Karen uncomfortable but less so each time. In the cafe, staff noticed the change in their manager. Karen still demanded excellence, but now she acknowledged good work instead of only criticizing mistakes. Tom, the new assistant manager, thrived with Karen's guidance. One Tuesday morning in the hotel's largest conference room, Karen stood before a detailed timeline pinned to the wall. In 2 weeks, the Grand Plaza would host the annual Johnson Family Foundation Gala, a major charity event with wealthy donors and press coverage. "We need to confirm the final menu today," Karen told the event staff. "The flower arrangements arrive at 4 o'clock on Friday. The children's artwork display needs better lighting." Marcus entered the conference room and watched Karen directing her team with focused precision. "How are the preparations going?" he asked when she finished giving instructions. "On schedule," Karen replied, "though I'm still not satisfied with the entertainment company. Their proposal lacks imagination." "The gala has never run this smoothly before," Marcus observed. "Last year was a disaster of last-minute problems." Karen smiled slightly. "There will be no disasters this year." Just then, Karen's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. "Excuse me, I need to take this. It's my mother's doctor." She stepped into the hallway, her face serious as she listened. When she returned, her expression was carefully controlled. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked. "My mother's latest tests show the cancer is spreading," Karen said quietly. "She needs to start a more aggressive treatment immediately." "I'm sorry to hear that," Marcus said. "You should take some time off." Karen shook her head. "The gala is in 2 weeks. I'll manage both." After lunch, Karen was surprised to see the triplets entering the hotel with Mrs. Rodriguez. They had occasionally visited after school, but it wasn't a regular occurrence. "Hello, Miss Karen," Zoe called, waving enthusiastically. "Hello, girls," Karen replied, still somewhat awkward around the children despite her progress. "What brings you here today?" Zara held up a small paper bag. "We made something for you." Karen accepted the bag cautiously. Inside were 3 handmade bracelets made of colored string. "We made them in art class," Zoe explained. "Mine is the blue one because you said blue is your favorite color." "How did you remember that?" Karen asked, touched that Zoe had recalled a casual comment from weeks ago. "I remember important things," Zoe said simply. Karen slipped one of the bracelets onto her wrist. "Thank you. This is very thoughtful." The girls beamed at her. Mrs. Rodriguez checked her watch. "We should go upstairs, girls. Your father will be home early today." As they walked away, Karen heard Zoe ask, "Can we come to the big party next week?" "That's for your father to decide," Mrs. Rodriguez replied. Karen returned to her office to call her mother's doctor. As she reached for the phone, her work cell rang. It was Stephen from the event planning company. "Ms. Mitchell, I have some bad news," he began. "Our company is declaring bankruptcy, effective immediately." Karen froze. "What? The gala is in 11 days." "I'm sorry," Stephen said, sounding genuinely regretful. "All our staff have been let go. We can't provide any services for your event." Karen hung up and immediately called Marcus. "The event company just went bankrupt," she explained when he answered. "We have no decorations, no lighting design, no sound system, and no entertainment for the gala." "Can we find another company this late?" Marcus asked. "I'm already making calls," Karen assured him. "But most good companies are booked months in advance." "Keep me posted," Marcus said. "And Karen, if this is too much with your mother's situation, we can assign someone else to handle it." "No," Karen said firmly. I can manage both. For the next 5 days, Karen worked almost non-stop. During the day, she called in favors from industry contacts, finding a lighting company in Brooklyn and a sound system from a theater that was dark that week. At night, she took her mother to treatment appointments, working on her laptop in hospital waiting rooms. Elaine watched her daughter making calls from the hospital chair. "You're going to make yourself sick working like this." "I'm fine," Karen insisted. "How are you feeling after today's treatment?" "Terrible," Elaine admitted, "but the nurse said that means it's working." On Friday morning, 6 days before the gala, Karen arrived at the hotel to find the triplets in the main lobby. They were sitting at a table with Mrs. Rodriguez, stuffing gift bags with small items. "What are you doing?" Karen asked. "Daddy said we could help with the party," Zara explained. "We're putting things in the gift bags for the guests. The staff is shorthanded because of the event company problem," Mrs. Rodriguez explained. "Mr. Johnson thought the girls could help with simple tasks." Karen hesitated, then sat down with them. "Thank you for helping. This is exactly what I needed today." "Miss Karen, why do you look so tired?" Zoe asked directly. "I haven't been sleeping much," Karen admitted. "There's a lot to do for the gala, and my mother isn't feeling well." "Is your mommy going to come to the party?" Zoe asked. "She's planning to," Karen said, "if she feels strong enough." Over the weekend, hotel staff volunteered extra hours to help prepare for the gala. Diego organized his kitchen team to create sample centerpieces using food and flowers. Housekeeping staff helped string lights in the ballroom. Even Luis, the busboy who once disliked Karen, stayed late to help arrange chairs. "Why is everyone helping?" Karen asked Tom in surprise. "Because you would do the same for us now," Tom replied simply. On Tuesday evening, the night of the gala, the Grand Plaza ballroom was transformed. Twinkling lights hung from the ceiling. Tables covered in white cloth featured beautiful centerpieces. A display of artwork created by children in the foundation's programs lined one wall. Karen wore a simple black dress instead of her usual blazer. Her mother stood beside her looking fragile but elegant in a navy blue dress. "You did all this in less than a week?" Elaine asked, genuine admiration in her voice. "I had help," Karen replied. Guests began arriving at 7 o'clock. Wealthy donors in expensive clothes mixed with foundation families dressed in their best outfits. Marcus greeted everyone at the door, the triplets standing beside him in matching pink dresses. "The ballroom looks amazing," Marcus told Karen when she approached. "I don't know how you pulled this off." "I learned from the best businessman in New York," Karen replied with a small smile. As the evening progressed, Karen moved through the crowd, checking details and solving small problems. The children's artwork display was a huge success, with donors bidding high amounts to purchase pieces. Karen was speaking with a catering server when she noticed her mother swaying slightly near the dessert table. Elaine's face had gone pale. "Excuse me," Karen said to the server. "I need to check on something." Before she could reach her mother, a staff member rushed up to her. "Ms. Mitchell, there's a problem with the main course. The kitchen needs you immediately." Karen looked torn, glancing between the kitchen doors and her mother. At that moment, Elaine pressed a hand to her chest and began to sink to the floor. Without hesitation, Karen ran to her mother, reaching her just as she collapsed. "Mom!" The triplets, who had been standing nearby admiring the desserts, watched with wide eyes as Karen knelt beside her mother. "Someone call an ambulance!" Karen called out, cradling Elaine's head in her lap. Marcus quickly took control of the situation, directing staff and calming guests. The medical team arrived within minutes. As the paramedics prepared to take Elaine to the hospital, Karen looked at Marcus. "I need to go with her." "The catering issue." "Go," Marcus interrupted. "I'll handle everything here." Karen climbed into the ambulance beside her mother, who had regained consciousness but remained weak. "The gala," Elaine whispered. "Your big event." "Some things matter more than perfect events," Karen replied, taking her mother's hand. The triplets watched the ambulance drive away, the flashing lights reflecting in their solemn faces. "Is Miss Karen's mommy going to die?" Zoe asked her father quietly. Marcus knelt beside his daughters. "The doctors will help her. Right now, Miss Karen is doing the most important job, being with someone she loves when they need her." "Like you do with us on Wednesdays," Zara observed. "Exactly like that," Marcus agreed. Inside the ambulance, Karen held her mother's hand tightly. 3 months ago, she would have stayed at the gala, prioritizing work over everything else, even her mother's health. Now, the choice had been simple and immediate. Some things were more important than professional perfection. For the first time in her adult life, Karen had made a decision her younger self wouldn't recognize, and she knew without doubt it was the right one. The white hospital walls seemed to close in on Karen as she sat beside her mother's bed. Elaine slept fitfully, connected to monitors that beeped steadily in the quiet room. It was nearly dawn, and Karen had not slept at all. Her phone vibrated with a text message from Marcus. "Gala finished successfully. Don't worry about anything here. Take care of your mother." Karen felt relief wash over her. She had never left an event unfinished before. The old Karen would have considered it a personal failure. Now it seemed like the most natural choice in the world. The doctor entered the room quietly. "Miss Mitchell, your mother is stable. The combination of her treatment side effects and exhaustion caused her collapse. We'd like to keep her for a few days for observation." "Thank you, doctor," Karen replied. "I'll stay with her." "You should get some rest too," the doctor suggested. "We have your number. We'll call if anything changes." Karen reluctantly left the hospital and returned to her apartment to shower and change clothes. When she checked her work email, she found dozens of messages about the gala, all indicating the event had continued smoothly despite her absence. For the next 2 weeks, Karen divided her time between the Grand Plaza and the hospital. Marcus arranged for a top oncologist to consult on Elaine's case, and Karen found herself unexpectedly touched by his support. "You didn't have to do this," she told him when he visited Elaine's hospital room. "Consider it part of your benefits package," Marcus replied with a small smile. "How is she doing?" "Better," Karen said. "The new medication seems to be working. The doctor thinks she might be able to go home next week." When Karen finally returned to full-time work, she was surprised by the welcome she received. The cafe staff had decorated her office with flowers and a "Welcome Back" sign. Even more surprising was how smoothly everything had run in her absence. Tom proudly showed her the systems he had created. "I used color coding like you taught me," he explained, pointing to a schedule on the wall. "Green for confirmed, yellow for tentative, red for problems that need attention." "This is excellent work, Tom," Karen said sincerely. "The cafe looks spotless, too." "Luis organized a deep cleaning team," Tom said. "He said we needed to maintain your standards." Karen found Luis restocking napkins at the counter. "Tom told me about the cleaning team." "Thank you." Luis smiled, no longer afraid of her. "It was no problem, Miss Mitchell. We wanted everything perfect for when you came back." That afternoon, Karen had a session with Dr. Bennett. They sat in his comfortable office discussing the changes in her relationship with her mother during the hospital stay. "She's different since the collapse," Karen explained. "More open. She actually thanked a nurse yesterday. I've never heard her thank service staff before." "Near-death experiences can shift perspectives," Dr. Bennett noted. "How do you feel about the change?" "Cautiously hopeful," Karen admitted. She asked about my work with the foundation children. She seemed genuinely interested. "And how are you handling the return to work?" Karen considered the question. "I expected everything to fall apart without me. Instead, they managed beautifully. It was humbling, but also freeing. I don't have to control everything." At the Johnson penthouse, Marcus found his daughters working intently at the dining room table after school. Colorful supplies were spread across the surface as they packed small items into decorated boxes. What are you working on? Marcus asked. Kindness kits, Zara announced proudly, for the children who come to stay at the hotel. Marcus examined the boxes. Each contained a small stuffed animal, colored pencils, a notebook, stickers, and a handwritten note. This was your idea? He asked. We wanted to help Miss Karen with her job, Zoe explained. She makes special things for sick children, so we thought we could too. Miss Karen looks tired when she comes back from the hospital, Zoe added softly. We wanted to make her happy. Marcus felt a surge of pride. This is very thoughtful. I'm sure she'll appreciate your help. The following Saturday, Marcus and the girls worked on the terrace of their penthouse. They had spent weeks planning Emma's memorial garden, and today they would plant the flowers. These are roses, Marcus explained, showing Zoe a small plant. They were your mother's favorite. What are these ones? Zara asked, pointing to purple flowers. Lavender, Marcus replied. She planted it because it smelled nice in the breeze. And these are sunflowers, Zoe said confidently, because Mommy was sunny. Marcus smiled at Zoe's description. That's right. As they worked, Marcus noticed the girls whispering together. Finally, Zara approached him. Daddy, can we invite Miss Karen to see the garden when it's finished? She asked. Marcus was surprised. You want to invite Miss Karen? The girls nodded in unison. She doesn't have a garden, Zoe explained, and her mommy is sick like our mommy was. She might like to see something pretty, Zoe added. Marcus considered their request. The garden was deeply personal, a connection to Emma he had avoided for years, but his daughters, with their simple wisdom, saw only a chance to share something beautiful with someone who needed it. If you'd like to invite her, you can, he agreed. The girls immediately began creating handmade invitations using their art supplies. At her apartment, Karen helped her mother settle onto the couch. Elaine had been released from the hospital that morning, looking frail but determined. Do you need another pillow? Karen asked. I'm not an invalid, Elaine replied, but without her usual sharpness. After a moment, she added, But thank you for asking. Karen sat beside her mother. The doctor says your new treatment is showing promising results. I know, Elaine said. She hesitated, then placed her hand over Karen's. I haven't been easy to deal with. Not just since the diagnosis, but always. Karen sat very still, surprised by this acknowledgement. When I saw how you left that fancy party to come with me in the ambulance, Elaine continued, I realized no one has ever put me first like that, not even your father. You're my mother, Karen said simply. Yes, but I haven't always been the mother you deserved, Elaine admitted. I think I was afraid to be. Before Karen could respond, her phone chimed with a text message. It was a photo of a handmade invitation to Emma's garden dedication at the Johnson penthouse the following afternoon. What's that? Elaine asked. An invitation, Karen replied, still processing the unexpected gesture. From the Johnson children. The ones from the cafe? Elaine asked. You should go. I'll be fine here for a few hours. The next day, Karen stood awkwardly on the Johnsons' penthouse terrace. The space had been transformed with flowering plants, small trees, and a stone path. The triplets were dressed in matching yellow dresses, and Marcus wore a suit despite the casual setting. Thank you for coming, Ms. Karen, Zoe said, taking her hand and leading her to the garden. We wanted you to see it. Karen felt out of place at this intimate family ceremony, but the girls' enthusiasm made it impossible to retreat. Marcus unveiled a small bronze plaque set into a decorative stone. Emma's garden, love grows here, it read. It's beautiful, Karen said softly. Your mother would be proud. Marcus nodded, emotion visible in his eyes. The girls wanted you here. They thought you'd understand what this means to us. Before Karen could respond, Zoe tugged at her hand. Come see the sunflowers. I planted them myself. As the summer turned to fall, Karen's work with the foundation continued to evolve. Her mother's health improved enough for her to return to Boston with a home health aide. Karen missed her, something she never expected to feel. One crisp October morning, Karen welcomed a new family to the Grand Plaza, the Wilsons and their 7-year-old twins, Jack and Jill. Both children had congenital heart conditions requiring surgery. "We have connecting rooms for you," Karen explained to Mrs. Wilson as they rode the elevator, each with special features for the children. "Jack loves space and Jill loves animals," Mrs. Wilson said. "The foundation application asked about their interests, but I never expected anything customized." Karen smiled. That's exactly what the foundation is for, creating special moments during difficult times. When they reached the rooms, Jack gasped at the space-themed decorations. Glow-in-the-dark stars covered his ceiling, and a telescope pointed out toward the city skyline. "Mom, look!" he exclaimed. Next door, Jill found her room filled with stuffed animals and nature books. On each bed was a kindness kit created by the Johnson Triplets. Later that day, Karen took the family to the cafe for hot chocolate. As she helped Jack carry his mug to the table, his small hand slipped, and the hot chocolate spilled across the floor. The cafe went completely silent. Staff and customers who knew the story of Karen and the triplets froze, watching for her reaction. Jack looked terrified. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Karen immediately knelt beside him, her face gentle. "It's okay, Jack. Accidents happen to everyone." She grabbed napkins from a nearby table. "Here, let's clean this up together." "You're not mad?" Jack asked in disbelief. "Not at all," Karen assured him. "We can make another hot chocolate, good as new." Across the cafe, Marcus had been having coffee with a business associate. He watched the scene unfold, amazement on his face. The same woman who had once told his daughter to lick spilled coffee from the floor was now gently helping another child clean up a similar mess. As their eyes met across the room, Marcus gave Karen a small nod of recognition. They both understood what they were witnessing, the genuine transformation of a human heart. "That was a beautiful moment," Marcus said to Karen later that day after Jack and his family had gone to rest in their rooms. "You've come a long way in a year." "A year?" Karen replied, surprised. "Has it really been that long since—" "Since the coffee incident?" "Yes," Marcus confirmed. "Almost exactly 1 year." The realization stayed with Karen as she walked through the Grand Plaza. So much had changed in that year. She had changed. 1 year after the original incident, the Grand Plaza Hotel buzzed with excitement. The annual Johnson Family Foundation Gala was the most anticipated charity event of the season. Staff hung crystal decorations from the ballroom ceiling while florists arranged elaborate centerpieces on tables covered with silver cloths. Karen Mitchell, now the foundation's full-time experience director, moved confidently through the space, checking details with practiced eyes. Her red blazer had been replaced by an elegant blue dress for the evening. "The children's artwork display needs better lighting," she told a staff member. "And please make sure all the foundation families have their VIP badges when they arrive." Unlike last year's rushed preparations, everything for this gala had been organized months in advance. Karen had overseen every detail, from the menu to the music. "Everything looks perfect, Karen," said Dr. Reynolds, approaching with a clipboard. "The families are all confirmed. 17 children will attend tonight." "Wonderful," Karen replied with a genuine smile. "I've arranged a special room where they can rest if they get overwhelmed by the crowd." At 5 o'clock, Karen's phone rang. It was her mother, Elaine. "I'm in the taxi now," Elaine said. "Should be there in 20 minutes." "Great," Karen replied. "I'll meet you in the lobby." Elaine had been in remission for 3 months. The aggressive treatment had worked, and though she still tired easily, her health had improved dramatically. More surprising than her physical recovery was the change in her demeanor. She spoke more gently now, even to strangers. When Elaine arrived at the Grand Plaza, Karen was waiting. They hugged, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. You look beautiful, Elaine told her daughter. That dress suits you. Thank you, Karen replied. How was your flight from Boston? Smooth, Elaine said, and the flight attendant was very helpful with my bag. Karen smiled at this. A year ago, Elaine would have complained about something, the food, the other passengers, the temperature. Now she focused on positive things. Let me show you around before guests arrive, Karen suggested. We've made some changes since you were here last. They walked through the hotel to the cafe, which had been renamed Emma's Place 6 months earlier. The space had been redesigned with a special area called Comfort Corner for young visitors. This section had lower tables, comfortable seating, and a small library of children's books. This is where it happened, Elaine noted quietly as they stood near the marble counter. Where everything changed for you. Karen nodded. For all of us, I think. As they continued the tour, they passed Marcus and the triplets in the lobby. The girls, now 7 years old, wore matching purple dresses for the gala. Ms. Karen, they called in unison, rushing toward her. Hello, girls, Karen greeted them warmly. You look lovely in your dresses. We helped Daddy pick them, Zara said proudly. Is this your mommy? Zoe asked, looking at Elaine. Yes, Karen replied. Mom, these are Zoe, Zara, and Zoe Johnson. Elaine smiled at the girls. I've heard so much about you. Thank you for being kind to my daughter. Your daughter is our friend, Zoe said simply. Are you feeling better now? Much better, thank you, Elaine replied, touched by the child's concern. At 7 o'clock, the ballroom filled with guests. Wealthy donors in expensive clothes mixed with foundation families dressed in their best outfits. The children's artwork display drew admiring crowds, with each piece accompanied by a photo and story of the young artist. Marcus stood at the entrance, greeting guests alongside the triplets. He looked relaxed and happy, far different from the disconnected man he had been a year ago. At 8:30, Marcus took the stage for his speech. The room quieted as he approached the microphone. Welcome to the annual Johnson Family Foundation Gala, he began. 1 year ago, many of you attended this same event. It was a lovely evening, but tonight is special for reasons beyond fundraising. He paused, looking around the room. I'd like to invite my daughters to join me on stage. The triplets walked up the steps, holding hands in their matching purple dresses. And I'd also like to invite Karen Mitchell, our Foundation Experience Director. The crowd applauded as Karen made her way to the stage, surprise evident on her face. A year ago, an unfortunate moment in our hotel cafe taught us all something invaluable. Marcus continued. Most of you know the story, how a spilled coffee led to a moment of cruelty, which then transformed into an ongoing legacy of kindness. The room was completely silent now. My daughters showed me that compassion isn't weakness, it's strength, Marcus said, placing his hands on the girls' shoulders. And sometimes, the greatest lessons come from our smallest teachers. He turned to Karen. Ms. Mitchell took a terrible mistake and transformed it into a mission to bring joy to children facing life's greatest challenges. The Comfort Corner program she created now exists in every Johnson hotel worldwide. Over 1,000 children have benefited from her work this year alone. The crowd applauded again. Karen's face flushed with emotion. We have a special presentation, Marcus added. Girls! Zara stepped forward, holding a small box. Ms. Karen, we made something for you. Karen opened the box to find a crystal coffee cup. Engraved on the side were the words, Sometimes mistakes pour out the best in us. It's a special award, Zoe explained, because you turned something bad into something good. Karen was speechless for a moment. Finally, she managed to say, Thank you. This means more to me than any professional award ever could. Marcus invited her to speak. Karen stepped to the microphone, holding the crystal cup carefully. A year ago, I was a different person, she began. I measured success by perfection and efficiency alone. I had no room for mistakes, mine or anyone else's. And she looked at the triplets. These children taught me that how we respond to our failures matters more than the failures themselves. Karen set the crystal cup on the podium. Tonight, I'm announcing a new initiative, the Compassionate Leadership Mentorship Program. We'll train hospitality staff across all Johnson hotels to lead with both excellence and empathy, especially when working with vulnerable guests. The crowd responded with enthusiastic applause. When Karen returned to her seat, Elaine squeezed her hand, pride shining in her eyes. Marcus returned to the microphone for one final announcement. The Johnson Family Foundation is proud to announce a $5 million donation to establish the Emma Johnson Memorial Wing at Children's Hospital of New York. Construction begins next month. The gala continued late into the evening. As guests began to leave, Zoe tugged at Karen's dress. "Can we show you something?" she asked. "Of course," Karen replied. The triplets led Karen and Marcus to the cafe, now quiet and empty. They stopped at a specific spot near the counter, the exact place where coffee had spilled a year ago. "Look," Zara said, pointing to a small brass plaque embedded in the floor. Karen knelt to read it. On this spot, a moment of cruelty became a lifetime of kindness, proving that what we do with our worst moments defines us, far more than the moments themselves. "Daddy had it put there last week," Zoe explained. Karen looked up at Marcus, her eyes questioning. "I wanted everyone to know the story," he said simply. "Some lessons should be remembered." Zoe knelt beside Karen, her small hand touching the plaque. "Something good came from something bad," she observed. "Yes," Karen agreed, thinking of all the changes in her life, her relationship with her mother, her work with the foundation children, her own emotional growth. "Something very good." Marcus watched his daughters with Karen, remembering how differently this scene had played out a year ago. The cafe was the same, the marble floor was the same, but everything else had changed completely. "Ready to go home, girls?" he asked. "It's getting late." The triplets hugged Karen goodbye. As they walked toward the door, Zoe turned back. "See you on Wednesday, Miss Karen," she called. "Don't forget we're making cookies for the new foundation family." "I won't forget," Karen promised. Left alone in the cafe, Karen touched the small plaque one more time. A year ago, she had stood in this exact spot and made the worst mistake of her professional life. Now it had become the foundation of her greatest purpose. She turned off the cafe lights and walked through the quiet hotel. Tomorrow would bring new foundation families to welcome, new experiences to create, new opportunities to practice the compassion she had learned from 3 small girls and their father. The spilled coffee had changed everything, including her, especially her. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.